Basecamp managers, I am Tricia Speyer. If you weren't with us in the beginning of this session, I will be talking about approving completion requests, and we have 3 other outstanding trainers with us tonight. I will move on. When you are a Basecamp manager, let's start with who is a Basecamp manager. If you are the incoming president, vice president, or secretary of your club, you are a Basecamp manager. The vice president of education would be the first person to respond to Basecamp requests. However, sometimes you're out of town or not available, so the president and secretary can also step in. When do you need to approve requests? When a member finishes a level, for example, they will click a button that says activate, and this actually sends a message to the email that is on file with Toastmasters International for your club contact. And this means when you go to Club Central, there's an email that people can go to contact your club. If it's your vice president of membership, they may get this request and promptly ignore it. So hopefully your members will tell you that they have completed a level, and then you can go into Basecamp to approve it. We highly recommend that you respond to these requests at least within 48 hours if you can, because they cannot move ahead until you have approved those requests. You will also print certificates, and we'll show you an example of that. And you will enter the award in Club Central. So how do you get to Basecamp as a manager? When you log into Toastmasters International, you go to Pathways. You'll see these 3 boxes. And if you have not been a Basecamp manager before, you will see this button come up. And it says log in as Basecamp manager. You would click that, and it will take you to the Basecamp manager, which has these 3 boxes. You can look at member progress, which we will be talking about later. You can also look at these tutorials, which will tell you everything that you need to know about being a Basecamp manager. But right now we're talking about approving level completion. So what you would do would be to click this box that says pending requests. When you come here, you'll see the name of a person who has, for example, completed a level. And in this case, pardon me, it's Martin Eckhart who has completed a level. And it shows that he has completed level 1 in his motivational strategies path. There will be a green check mark and a red X. If there's some reason that you know of that he should not be approved to complete this level, perhaps he forgot to finish one of those projects in level 1 or some other reason, then you can click that red X and let him know that the approval was not complete. Otherwise, all you have to do is click this little green X. His level is approved, and the member is notified from Toastmasters International. They'll receive an email from them. What you will also need to do, and this is very important for your club, if you've heard of this distinguished club program, we track the number of educational awards that your club members have earned. What you would do is from Toastmasters International home screen, you will log in, and you will be an officer, so you'll have access to Club Central. Go to Leadership Central, and you'll see a drop-down box in the middle that says Club Central. When you click Club Central, select Submit Education Awards. And those of you who have been with the traditional program, it's a very similar process to when you submitted, say, a Competent Communicator Award, Competent Leader, and so forth. It will have a drop-down box of the members in your club. You can select that member, and if they have completed level 1 in Pathways, for example, you would select from that drop-down which award that you are applying for. Once you complete all of that information, Toastmasters International is notified, the member is notified through email, and we invite you to print their certificate so that you can celebrate with your club. If you're holding meetings online through Zoom, which most of us are, you can download a PDF to your computer and display it on your screen, do the sharing of the screen so that everybody could celebrate. And here's an example of one of the certificates. So this is when I achieved level 1 of the dynamic leadership. So you can show that on your screen, everybody celebrates, and that person can move on to level 2. Now I will pass the lectern over to our next speaker, Bill Simpson.
Okay, as a Basecamp manager, and Tricia already showed a little bit of this when she talked about pending request. You will get this, and this is something that is very valuable for Basecamp managers. The manager tutorials won't go into today, but that's where if you aren't sure how to do something as a Basecamp manager, and let's face it, in July 1st, a lot of our Basecamp managers are going to be new as Basecamp managers. You can find out a lot of information here, but it's the member progress is one place that we'll be going over. And this little asterisk, and I'm sorry, the search button. The search bar allows you to enter the name of anyone in your club. So for example, I'm going to pick on a member of my club that I want to look at that member's portfolio because I want to see how they're doing. Maybe they have a problem. Maybe they've asked me something. So I can look, Anthony is working in dynamic leadership. I can actually see as Basecamp manager how they have done in each level. Anyway, for some reason, the system is not working. We got word that the system they would be working on it tonight. So maybe they have started. But what you will be able to do is just as a member can call up their entire screen of all of their projects, you can look at the same thing. You can see what projects they've completed, what ones they have not done yet. And where I have used this as a Basecamp manager, somebody tells me, I don't know why the system isn't letting me do my next project. Maybe they completed their icebreaker, but they can't get approval to do the second project. And I look up on their portfolio and I see, oh, they never put the check mark in for icebreaker, so it never did actually mark it as completed. That's why, so I will go back to that person and tell them. Now, the member progress button has a lot of bars, and it takes a while for this to take, but it gives you as you can see on the left, how status for anybody in your club. I mean, not anybody, not a person, but your club. Progress they've made, what paths are being worked on, what paths have been completed, what levels within a path, which paths your newer members are choosing. So this can give you, if you're a statistical junkie like I am, this can give you some good information to go on. it talked about managing dual members. Some of you may have a member in your club. There's also in another club. When you are using these tools that I talked about, one tricky part is if that member is not listed as with their home club as your club, then data for them will not be available. So if you did want to do statistics for your club, or if you want to look up their account, you have to ask them to change their home club in Pathways to your club, or you won't be able to find data on them. And when we talk about recognition, just as we've been talking about, saying about completions of levels, this can be done not only in meetings, but it can also be done on Facebook and other items. So a strong suggestion to make sure that member knows that you appreciate them. And now I believe it will be Alicia and Robbie.
Correct. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to talk about vehicles for training and encouraging the use of pathways within your club, because some people are still hesitant, almost fearful to move forward. There's this whole concept of mentorship. Mentorship is at its base designed to help someone reach their goals. It's not a coaching, but it's actually a live discussion where you determine where the person wants to be and set a plan in place to get them there. And this is a very helpful way to help someone move along their path. You can become a Pathways mentor, and I would encourage members of your club, once you reach level 2, you have to reach level 2 before you can start that process to become a Pathways mentor. Then you have to complete an entire path before you can actually qualify as a mentor, if I'm not mistaken. But becoming a Pathways mentor will take you on, it's an involved and it's a very valuable lesson in mentoring all the way around. There's some great resources when you activate becoming a Pathways mentor that you will find will apply to almost everything that you do outside of Toastmasters. Quick explanations of 2 to 3 minutes. These can be done during your table topics as part of your meetings. It is very helpful to ask a member to pick something in Pathways and talk about it. It's great. It's a great learning experience, both from giving the speech and also to help educate your members. You can have an education moment via Zoom. And one of the things that I think as leaders we all need to do is encourage the pathway integration inside and outside your club. In other words, if you're working on your path, if you have members working within the path, keep promoting the aspect that they're not just trying to reach the end of their path in order to earn the recognition in Toastmasters. These are all skills that are designed to help us move forward in our day-to-day lives. Alicia?
Thank you, Robbie. On the next slide, I'm going to talk about a few other items related to vehicles for training and encouraging the use of pathways. And I mentioned earlier how much I love action verbs. So vehicle, the imagery of movement and encouragement, we're getting people moving. So find your technical guru to help out your non-techies. Sometimes the barrier might not be pathways itself. It might be the actual tech, the environment, the Windows environment. I have noticed at some different trainings I have facilitated for pathways online and also in person that explaining that the Pathways learning experience is a window that sits inside of the Toastmasters.org website. So you have the Toastmasters.org website, and the Pathways itself opens up as another embedded sub-website inside of it. And then just going through showing how when you close that out, it takes you back to the main home screen. So just having those few moments, just a couple of minutes before a club meeting, a couple of moments after a club meeting. In fact, in our club, my home club, we used to always have a 15-minute mini networking session right before the meeting starts. It was really great because visitors would come in, we can find out why they come, what interests them, we can answer questions, and actually some people wanted to join, immediately. It's even more valuable to us now that we're in the Zoom environment. We still have that same 15 minutes, and now we can check our sound. We can see if anyone's having trouble getting logged in. People who want to give a speech and use PowerPoint, maybe it's their first time, so they can practice. They don't have to use any other time. They can just take a few minutes with a couple of us who are comfortable, and then they become comfortable, and guess what? They show the next person. So it's really important to bring everybody along one by one. Secondly, invite a member from another club to demonstrate Pathways. So we had a lot of people today putting in the chat box, they're on level 3, different paths, level 4, different things that they're doing, and similar to if we were in person, how we used to network with each other and say, hey, oh, you're doing this, you should come visit my club, or, let's connect. So we want to encourage you to encourage your members and one another to utilize that networking as a vehicle to encourage Pathways. We also think it would be great if you start posting even just a one-liner, a personal Pathways post on your social media page and tag some of your friends and your fellow Toastmasters. Get that conversation going. I'll share a personal Pathways success. My favorite path was persuasive influence. Little personal story here. I was walking around the house trying to figure out what will my second path be. And I was listing the paths out loud: dynamic leadership, persuasive influence, team collaboration. And I heard my husband from the other room say, babe, did you say something about persuasive influence? And I said, yes. Why? Take that one. I'm like, what are you saying? He's like, you're not very persuasive. Now I have completed the persuasive influence path, and he doesn't say that anymore. I definitely have learned a lot from that path and applied it. Finally, I would like to share how important it is to visit other clubs and bring back learning. It couldn't be more easy than right now to go to another club. Literally, it is a click away. The value I receive from visiting other clubs, just little things, learning how clubs do things slightly different. Yes, we're all Toastmasters and we're all the same fundamentally, but every club has a different culture. Some clubs do the round robin. We talked about that. Some clubs have a moment of humor or a joke master or a snack master. I enjoyed visiting that club. And now our clubs need a Zoom master. So these are some tips that will definitely encourage the use of Pathways and also fun ways to encourage training. Back to you, Robbie.
Thank you, Alicia. A continuation of the vehicles for training and encouraging the use of Pathways. Please continue to attend district events. District events, there's so much going on. There's so much to learn, and especially in these Zoom environments, it is, to me, somewhat mind-blowing what it takes to put these events together and how smoothly they move. There is so much knowledge and so much experience to be gleaned from others. And if you don't attend the district events, you're going to miss out on all that learning. Ask your area director for help in Pathways and Zoom. They're receiving training and they're willing to share that training with you. It's invaluable. If your club has a lot of members that have not actually started down the paths in Pathways, this is a great time to ask for help, because you can probably navigate it on your own, but a little bit of direction from someone else goes a long, long way. I know in our own club, when I first started, there was a continued dialogue in the meetings about how frustrated people were because they were moving from the legacy program to Pathways, and it was different, and it was on the computer, and it was painful, and nobody quite knew where to go until someone asked for help, and that really smoothed things through. Just to be given a few pointers so that you can self-navigate is so important. And Alicia, would you like to take the final point?
Absolutely. Volunteer to lead a session. Robbie did that. Robbie volunteered to lead one of the virtual sessions last year, and we got to talking, and Robbie and I were talking about the managed online meetings, and it's one of the Pathways electives for, it's either in level 3 or 4, depending on your path. And it also might be in 5 and 4 for you.
Yes.
And she said, you know, Alicia, I need to get good at this for work also. I'd like to do 3 sessions. I'm like, 3 sessions? Yes, you're in. So there are so many great leadership opportunities for you here in Toastmasters, inside your club, outside of your club, within the district, or even today, right now. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see you could become a Pathways pal. Yeah, so I'm going to ask Tricia to talk about that, and maybe some of you would like to sign up right now.
That's right. Become a Pathways pal. So what's a Pathways pal? I will be the incoming program quality director beginning July 1st. What we'd like to do is continue the excellent training that we have had over these past couple of years on Pathways. We have had webinars during lunch, during the evening, some on the weekends. But now is a perfect time to take advantage of the opportunity that we have. Many of us are using Zoom for our meetings. So what a Pathways pal would do would be to help people one-on-one through Zoom. Zoom licenses are free for everyone for a meeting of up to 40 minutes. What we envision is we have a set of volunteers who are Pathways pals. You do not need to have completed a path. You just need to know how to log in, perhaps how to navigate through Pathways. You saw the hundreds of questions that came through in the first session if you were here. There are a lot of people who do need help with Pathways. So what a Pathways pal would do, we will have a sign-up sheet, or actually a registration where you would sign up for a specific amount of time, say a 15-minute appointment, and the Pathways pal would run a Zoom session. The mentee would actually share his or her screen and log into Pathways. The Pathways pal would help guide them through it. You say, now click the button on the left to go to your path or your different level or whatever the mentee needs. You can help guide them through Pathways and help them through the navigation. You have seen how there are arrow navigations on either side of the screen. You've seen the buttons with the next and the previous. That confuses some people. They might want to know how to print their project or how to complete a level. The Pathways pal would just be able to guide them. And a few people might need more guidance about, what do I do for my elective project in level 4? Some people tend to get stuck at those certain levels. So we will have people who will be able to help in the higher levels as well. But right now, if you're interested in becoming one of the mentors, go ahead and email me at tricia.d10tm@gmail.com, and we will assign you to an appointment board. What we would do is we'd ask you for your availability, and then someone would request an appointment with you or one of the team members. And then from our District 10 site, any member of District 10 could sign up for an appointment for about 15 minutes. It just takes a little bit of a time, but we're able to help people in one-on-one, we hope. And we also still continue to do the online webinars, perhaps once every couple of months or every month if we need them. But we encourage you to join the team. Look forward to it. Anyone else on the panel?
Tricia, thank you so much. I think that that is a really great organized way that we can take just 15 minutes here or there to help someone else get going. That is so motivating and exciting when, if you think back, if we all think back to just moments in our life where we had some stagnation, we just needed someone just to show us 15 minutes so we can get going. So we're grateful for that. I do see some people who are want to sign up to be Pathway Pals, so thank you.
Yay.
Bill or Robbie, before we go to questions, do you have any final things you want to share?
Regarding ways in which we can help, let's remember, as was mentioned, that sometimes ways we can help can be projects. For example, if you're willing to go into a club, there are a few clubs where people are really, the club as a whole has really not gotten into pathways. So it might be good to have one member go to that club, and because we're meeting through Zoom, it's going to their club, staying at home. There are projects such as question and answer session and other projects that could be done as part of this training session. So you not only would help the club and yourself and the district, you'd be able to get a project completed at one of the higher levels of pathways. So that is something to consider.
Mm-hmm. One other thing to consider, if you are interested in being a Pathways pal or helping in any way, from a personal standpoint, I learned so much and grew so much by signing up to assist and to be involved in this. And I think that is something that people don't realize will happen. I learned a lot of skills. I learned a lot more about organization, things that I thought I was good at before. I've gotten better. And it's a great learning experience for the pal, and it's a great learning experience for the person that you're helping.
And Robbie, also too, we talked earlier about the different forms that Toastmasters International provides you within the pathways in your evaluation resources. One of the other ones, there's a form for the mentor and for the mentee. And I would say that the Pathways PAL relationship would fit into that category to also get credit in that. It's great, it's very strategic, allows you to document your communication as well. So I think it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And we wanted to be very deliberate to take time, have a lot of time to answer questions and to possibly share our screens and show different scenarios that you may have for us. So we're going to stop sharing and invite you to turn your video on and to either raise your hand or virtually or your actual hand. We're ready to take questions. And comments as well. If you have comments, we welcome those as well.
Hello, Alicia. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Dane. My question is that I am in presentation mastery level 4. I want to choose the elective that is involved in the podcasting. So I wasn't sure is anybody have done that podcast, and I would like to have a mentor for that path.
Great, Danae. Thank you so much for asking the question about podcasting. I know that for District 10, we do have the Toastmasters 101 podcast. And Kim Craigie, she facilitates that podcast, so she would be a great person to reach out to for mentorship with podcasting. Does anyone else have any response or know of anyone else that's podcasting right now?
Renee, I'm writing it down. Perhaps I can introduce you through email to Kim and see if she can help you out.
And
Appreciate it, Tricia. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Who's next?
Can you please repeat the name of the podcast, Alicia?
Yes, Toastmasters 101. And I feel that one of our team members is going to paste the link in the chat box pretty soon, pretty sure.
There you go. There you go. And I was just going to mention that Kim said it several times. We just got into the last few months in a hurry here, as we all realize. Kim is willing to do a little overview of podcasting for all of us. If we can make time for it, perhaps it would be a nice special event for all of us to just get together in the evening and to learn more.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shravante. That would be great. I see that Dale Force has his hand up.
Well, one of my clubs, we have a person who's interested in joining, but is very computer shy. She got on early on and had a cyber stalker. It was actually in our apartment building at the time. So I'm trying to figure out how to get her involved when we actually start meeting in person again. I'm thinking possibly a lot of her connections, she could do the pathways like at the library computer. Does anyone have any ideas on that?
Would you consider having that person assign that person a mentor or just another member that they actually sit with as they're going through their path so that their exposure is lessened?
That might be possible. I know one of our other members and their grandchildren are friends. Their grandsons are friends. So that might well be possible to do something along those lines.
And another aspect, there are a few members in our district who don't have computers. And so that's one of the reasons why printed paths is an option for somebody who really, for whatever reason, doesn't want to use a computer or doesn't have access to a computer. It's more expensive because you have to pay the $25, as Alicia previously mentioned in our prior session, for the printed path. But it is an option for somebody who, for whatever reason, doesn't want to use or can't use the computer.
Yeah, I was thinking partly too of actually posting any of the materials on it, posting their results. But we probably get a mentor to work with them on that.
Can the VP of Education print a path for a member? Bill, do you want to take that one?
You can, if you can print as a member, not just the Basecamp manager. If you are in that path, you can print anything from that path. So if you're a Basecamp manager, for example, I am not in team collaboration. So I could not print out the material for team collaboration. But when I showed you before about how I could find out which members in my club are in which paths, if I find a club member who is in team collaboration, then I could ask them to print out the material.
And we want to mention too that we realize that as a new Basecamp manager, being very first time brand new, this may seem like a lot, and this is why we think teams are important. As a Basecamp manager, you have a team. The president and the secretary, they are your automatic assistant Basecamp managers. This year, I'm president of Westlake Toastmasters, and I have 2 members on my team. And when we were meeting in person, we went to the Great Northern Mall where they have the hibachi spot there so that we could have a nice Basecamp manager meeting. And it was really great because at the time we had 24 members. And we sat down and we went through the list, and we divided the list by eighths. So we each ended up having 8 members. And one of the things we also did was we were working with our mentorship chair, which we do have one in our club, to pair up the mentors in the club with the members. So it's when you break it down into smaller pieces, it becomes more of practicing your team collaboration skills, practicing your delegate to empower skills. And that's the part that makes it very doable. Now, although we are having this session today, please know we will be having multiple Basecamp manager sessions and continued pathways training throughout the year. We really want to make sure that all of our members and leaders especially are comfortable and that they have the knowledge that they need to execute their roles. Let's remember, anytime you take on anything new, it does take practice, and it's a lot more fun to practice with a partner or with a team. Mm-hmm. So this is why Toastmasters International automatically gives you a team. That's the best part. And in case they don't realize they're the team, just go get them. Hey, we're the team, you know. There's another question about can projects be done out of order? This is a great question. Originally, the answer would have been no. You were required to do your projects in order, and you had to complete a project in order for you to access the next step. I recall contacting Toastmasters International to ask about retroactive credit, thinking about how sometimes through work or your community volunteerism, you may have the opportunity to complete a level 4 project and you're on level 2. And I was instructed that yes, we can get credit retroactively. However, they have upgraded pathways. So now we can access the entire path on the digital path. So although it's important to move in order from an academic standpoint of building on those skills that you learn, because we're building our way stair-stepping up to mastery, we don't want you to not get credit. So let's say, for example, you are a part of a pathways training, like the 4 of us, and you're the next bunch to lead the next training maybe, or you're joining us. You should get credit for helping to manage an online meeting. That's a level 4 possibly. Maybe you're on level 2, but we will fill out the evaluation form for you for that, and you'll start getting that credit and the experience from doing the skills.
And this is also especially true for some of the elective projects. Let's say you stumble upon an opportunity, but you don't know that it even exists that you could get credit for, right? So if you're looking at elective projects especially, there are so many opportunities that we come across or that people offer or ask us to take on, that these credits or knowing that they're there will really help. And you can send them the evaluation form ahead of time.
Great feedback, Sravanti. Thank you. We have another question from John Gemstone. John Gemstone. I have had officers approach me about being a Basecamp manager. Is there a way to appoint an extra Basecamp manager? Bill, do you want to chime in on this one?
Unfortunately, from my perspective, unfortunately, the answer is no. Toastmasters set it up so that the only people who can be Basecamp managers are those 3. The president, the vice president of education, and the secretary.
But there might be a way to engage them in some Basecamp manager activities.
Right. They can't do the official Basecamp manager functions, but they could be somebody we've talked about, you know, whether we want to call them a Pathways pal or just someone working with particular members about some different aspects. They can be more involved in Pathways. They can be helping you out in, I personally love spreadsheets. So I keep a spreadsheet of every speech that a member gives so that when I receive a level completion request, I already know that they've completed it. So maybe somebody is willing to be the person who actually keeps track of all of the pathways projects that are being done by members. So you can utilize them, but they can't do the actual approval levels in pathways.
Right, but that's interesting you mentioned that, because that sort of sounds like something that the club secretary would do anyway, potentially, right? So there's a logical reason why they chose, I believe, the secretary and the president, and to assist with the vice president of education. So if you have members in your club that are saying, hey, I have an interest in becoming a base camp manager, or I want to help out, maybe they don't jump right into the vice president of education role, but a stair-stepping could be club secretary. There they would have the opportunity to manage the records of the club and to, make sure they have the minutes taken, especially for the voting that the club does, but also to start with assisting with the base camp manager. So, Vanta, you have some comments?
I do. You bring a very good perspective, both Bill and Alicia. I'd like to take off my analyst hat and put on my problem-solving hat. And John, if you don't mind, you don't have to share, but are we trying to solve the problem, or are we just trying to succession plan and attend to someone's desire to be one of these base camp managers? Do you see that? So there is a desire to learn and there is a desire to help the club, or there is a problem that this person is saying, hey, I'm here to help. There is a problem to be solved. So I want us to think of those things. So as officers, sometimes people show desire because they are frustrated that their education award has not been approved yet, and it's been 8 days, and all 3 officers are available, but they haven't approved. So maybe there is a problem to be solved as opposed to a desire that needs attention. So I want us to think as officers, right? To see what it is, that get to the root cause, as opposed to, if the root cause is that this person is really desirous of helping the club, then I think what Alicia and Bill said goes absolutely in line with that. But if the problem is that this person is frustrated time and again, then let's address the problem from the problem perspective. And to us officers, none of this should be new, because these kinds of situations will happen in spite of our best efforts.
Thank you, Shivanti. I'd like to ask if we do have some base camp managers here tonight that are, like you are a returning base camp manager. It's not necessarily your first time. You have some experience with base camp. If you have an experience that you'd like to share, tell us what it's like to be a base camp manager. If it's not your first time, I bet you people who are here for the first time would love to hear something about that. I see someone very interested. So Robbie, go ahead, and then I see someone else too, but I'll wait for the volunteer.
My first role as secretary, I was of course a base camp manager, and we found that we had a VP of education who was brand new to the role and brand new to the club, and also taking over new responsibilities at work. So what it ended up being was more of a committee effort, a group effort to get things in order. We didn't have a lot of people progressing through the pathways, but we were all kind of stumbling around blind. So what we did is we just talked a lot. We talked to each other a lot to make sure that we knew what each one was taking care of, and we weren't being redundant, but we also weren't letting things fall between the cracks. And I think that's really important. If the VP of E job, the VP of Education job is a big job. So I think it's really important that the secretary and the president support that person. But I think it also could be helpful if you consider having perhaps a committee. So you have somebody who is in a position to learn as the year is progressing, so they learn what the job is and what is involved in the job, so that you have someone who can be your backup or who can step into those shoes at the end of the year. Alicia?
That's a great point, Robbie. I imagine a shadowing type of situation. I really agree with that. That's one of the main reasons when we talked, Robbie, Bill, Tricia, and I, we wanted to have a pathways training separate and pull it out from the club officer training, so we could take the time to talk about the role and elaborate and take questions.
Alicia, can I mention one item?
Absolutely.
For base camp managers, TI allows, and I really wish they didn't, but they allow me to approve my own level because I am a base camp manager. I encourage you not to do that for two reasons. One is even base camp managers can make mistakes. So I might have said I completed a level, but I really didn't. Also, it gives your other base camp managers the opportunity to actually go through the process. So if they're brand new as base camp managers, it's an opportunity for them to learn. So I strongly encourage you, if you're the primary base camp manager, if you're the VP of education, don't approve your own levels. Ask one of your other base camp managers to do it.
That's a good point, Will. It makes me think about the external training, the getting credit outside of your club. So as a base camp manager, particularly vice president of education, you may have members who are functioning in some of these projects that they should be getting credit for in their Pathways path. And we would love to see you talk to your club about it, maybe even give a speech in your club about getting credit for, outside of my club. So whether it's giving a presentation, even at work, or if it's most everything is online right now, but any of the projects that you're doing, and encourage them to give you some feedback, an agenda. It's not required, but encourage them to provide you with an agenda, something from that day, or a screenshot, because that's another thing, and encourage them to upload their documentation into their e-portfolio. And we did talk about that earlier. Tricia talked about that. So if we can encourage our members, and we can do this by doing it ourselves, we can just take our phone and take a snapshot of our evaluation forms. We know that we give evaluations in our meetings. We know this. We know that we're giving manual speeches. But it's so easy to misplace that form. Go ahead and take a snapshot, upload it into ePortfolio. And I have some in there. I'm going to be putting more in there. Also, use your ePortfolio. If you're speech writing, and we are all speech writing, so we are all speech writers, just saying. And you can take a snapshot of your speech writing and upload it. And it's really nice because in your base camp, you have by level, you have folders. It's all organized for you. So when someone says, oh, I heard about your speech, or I thought you were great, my son's team would love to hear that speech. Could you give that speech again? You're like, where are those papers? I wrote that speech. But you have a record. I mean, all of us, it's a great way for us to help ourselves gather our intellectual property and put it in a place where we can access it, but also to be organized and to help and encourage our members to do the same. And yes, we do definitely believe that everyone is using their core values of integrity, respect, service, and excellence. And that's one of the things I loved when I learned about that when I first joined Toastmasters, is that that is what we automatically assume, and that's what we expect, that's what we share, that's why we're part of this wonderful organization. And that's great, because we all make sure we are living up to that, and we're the models for that. So just thinking about, as base camp managers, modeling what we want to see our members do. So the things that we do, they will do. Hopefully give speeches about that. Maybe take a table topics. We had talked about vehicles to encourage use of pathways. Make it a theme as a table topics. Pick something and have everyone talk about it related to pathways. And as the chat continues to come in, I remember my first time as a base camp manager, I echo what Robbie said. It happened to be when I was the vice president of education. So I definitely had a team, had about 4 people on my committee for vice president of education, so I could also focus on being a base camp manager. and the improvements. So Toastmasters is about continual improvement, and the improvements have made it so much easier to manage the member progress. Those tools are important. One word of encouragement: do not be discouraged if you get lost or if you're unsure, or do not be overwhelmed. Take a deep breath. If you were here earlier, the one thing you'll notice in Pathways, when you're clicking around, it has to think. So it has a circle that goes around, typically long enough for 2 good deep breaths. That's important because you get the extra oxygen going to your brain with the blood flow, and you need that. Side note. So,
Alicia?
Yes, yes.
This Manar here. I have a question for you on the member progress. Earlier, we were showing like those within each level, we can see the members project of all progress of all the projects. Is there a report or is there a way for me to just pull out the information? Like, let's say in the last month, how many projects did our members complete? Because one of the problems I'm having with the existing, like the members progress, individual progress sheet is I had to go into each level and pull the data and sort it out. So I'm looking for like what progress did we make since the last quarter kind of report.
So great question. And yes, that is very tedious. You can download a file that will have it all sorted out for you. There's some dates attached to that, so you could check and see the progress by the dates. This is one of the newer updates, not so recent, but it is an update since Pathways launched. So level 1, we talked about that and what that entails. So when your members are going through the level 1, you would be able to see Icebreaker project. It'll say by every single member whether it's completed or if it's in progress. And same thing for evaluation and feedback. You know, speech, first speech, evaluation and feedback, second speech, evaluation, speech, each part, research and presenting. So that's very helpful to download that file.
Yeah, that I have done that, but still like I have to sort it and pull the dates I'm looking for.
Right, but you'll be able to sort it electronically, correct?
Yes, on a spreadsheet.
Yes.
But I have to do that for each level separately. So I was just wondering if there is a quick way for me to, you know how I can like look at all the level completions in one shot?
No, I have done it, but I've only done it one level at a time. Has anyone else done this more than one level at a time?
No.
No?
Okay, thank you.
But you know, I'm not sure if that's something that's in the pipeline, Sravanti.
Hey Manar, have you used the Education Achievements District 10 on the off of the additional reports?
The educational awards?
Educational achievements. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at it right before. That's why I took a moment to unmute myself. So there is an additional, under additional reports, I think that's where it is. It says educational achievements by district, and it says District 10. And you can look in there, and perhaps this is what you're looking for. So if you go into, let me see where that is. This is, yeah. In daily reports, so for those of us who are less familiar, I think these reports are so there are daily reports, there are additional reports, there are reports that are district-wide, there are area to-dos, which would be extremely important for those of us in the last 2 weeks too. So there are many reports. If you haven't seen the, maybe one of us could just navigate there in the 2 minutes that we have, is to show folks where to get to the reports. So if you're not watching, and if you're not watching more intentionally what your club is doing or who's achieving what, we can only go so far in our understanding and analysis. Perhaps looking at the numbers, you don't have to be obsessed, don't have to look at it every day, but at least once a week, what's going on with the club and what our goals are, and kind of match them up. I think that would be immensely helpful.
Shravanti?
Yes, Manar?
Thank you for the tip. I looked at it and I can see the awards that a period has submitted. My question is around like within a level, which projects the members have completed recently. That kind of, like all in one page. Instead
So
of,
perhaps one of us could take this as a takeaway and see if we could have TI answer that question for us. And by the way, for all of us, right, there are TI contacts, and I'll find that page and put it there. TI answers questions one-on-one too. Again, we can't say, okay, so what is Shravanti's member number? Can I know? I mean, not those kinds of questions, but in general, if it is a report that you would like every month, or if you would like a snapshot of a quarter, we have to be reasonable. There are only a handful of people, a dozen people working 368,000 of us. So we have to be mindful on our requests, but absolutely, if it is something you think that would be helpful and valuable for your club or for your area or division for that matter, please do reach out to TI, and I'll find their contacts page. But do be mindful. You don't go and say, Shravanti said we could write to you every 5 minutes. No. We do know, Alicia, myself, and those of us who have visited TI know that there are only 12 or 14 or 16 people servicing hundreds and thousands of us. So let's be mindful, but definitely if it is something that you think is valuable and you have a specific request that you'd like to see, and maybe we could put in a request, Alicia, to TI saying that this is something that we are looking for, or our officers are looking for, and they do work on our requests from time to time. They kind of gather up all of the requests, see which ones came in more often, and they do try to accommodate and provide some new functionality.
that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Is there official guidance from Toastmasters that speeches in the club have to be done from the education program?
I'll give some feedback to that, and I'll defer to others who may want to chime in as well. I have experienced that type of scenario as well on more than one occasion within a club that I belong to, and I have sought guidance from TI. The first thing is that on the area director report, which is the area directors are the liaison between the club officers, the club itself, and Toastmasters International. It's their way to check in on the club. How's the club doing? What help does the club need? One of the items on their report that they submit to World Headquarters is, are the club members giving speeches from the manuals? They want to know if they are working the program. Now, I have not found a way to, an actual rule particular per se. And in this case, on a couple of different members over the past years, just not seeming to be able to give the manual speeches. So signing up to give speeches, and then maybe not having the manual with them, difficult to give them evaluations, scrambling for a way to grab a piece of paper and evaluate the individual. And even with pathways, just not giving us a path, we don't know. So they're already signed up to give a speech, they give a speech, but the thing about it is I found out through asking, we cannot not give credit to a member that gives a speech. So if a member gives a speech and they don't identify a path, we still have to give them credit. Now that puts a burden on us as the officers, and the member may or may not realize that burden, especially if it's repetitive. Of course, everyone, once in a while we understand. So here's where the Vice President of Education role comes into play. As the second highest ranking officer in the club, your job is the agenda, and the management of the agenda protects the club. So one of the things that you would need to do is you'd have to work with this member. You can require them to have the information in advance before you allow them to sign up on the agenda. Now, this would only be after, if this is a real problem. And Sharon, based on the scenario you're sharing, this seems to be a repetitive situation. But that is what we have at this point. And if we think back, we can go back to the Toastmasters promise. I highly encourage us to look at our Toastmasters promise, because we promise to prepare our speeches with the best of our abilities and to follow the program. So sometimes I think we may have to remind if we have this situation, this might be one of those crucial conversations we need to have with the member, because we want our members to stay members and to them to be empowered and the club to be empowered by their engagement. Those are my thoughts about the issue, Sharon. Thank you for the question. Others?
Alicia, this is Craig.
Thank you.
So the question was brought up as far as how to track who in your club is on what pathway.
The question, Craig, was about what level they are.
Well, in other words, it was raised, is there a place where you can easily spot who's on what path as a club, as a whole? And I don't know of anything in Toastmasters itself that does a really good job of that. I think you mentioned the idea that in Club Central, if you go all the way to the bottom on the right-hand side, there are additional reports. And if you open up that, there is this showing of what has been awarded within your club. But that's not exactly what you're looking for. You're looking to see what path everybody's on. This is not the exact answer, but Easy Speak is really, really deep in what they offer, and we are in the process of really breaking it all down and learning it well, I think, for the first time as a club. But you can look in there and you can see, open up a pathway, and it will show everybody what path they're on, how many speeches they've completed along that line, where they are at the moment. In the old the book format, which is going away in a couple of weeks, you could see there and which each speech had been given. So talked with Alicia before in the idea that as we get a little bit better familiar with the real deep part of Easy Speak, down the road we might be able to present something on that to help you work through it. There are other sort of backup programs for planning like this. I'm not familiar with those, only with Easy Speak. It seems intimidating at the beginning, but once you see what's there and you learn to navigate it, it is amazingly rich.
Well, if I may add, within Pathways, that the item that I was having trouble accessing for some reason, the members' progress reports that a Basecamp manager can see does show what everybody does, show how many speeches, how many levels members, how many members are working at each level. It shows what level they are on within that. The difficulty that I think was mentioned earlier before, does it show it for a particular period of time? Does it give us statistics over a time? No, this is just static data as of today. So we can't say that report doesn't tell us this number of level 3 speeches in this path were done in the last 6 months. But it does show that we have 2 members working in level 3 in engaging humor. That we can find out through Pathways in the member progress reports that the Basecamp manager has.
Thank you, Bill, for sharing. Thank you, Craig, as well. And we do look forward to that Easy Speak training. It's definitely something, even if you guys want to do a basic training, there are a lot of people who don't really know about Easy Speak or who haven't utilized it as an integrative approach to agenda making and
meeting management. Yep.
Yeah. What's that you say, Sravanti?
Meeting management. It helps you, meeting management and member management. And we use that at our home club, and we've used it for a few years, Craig, that you bring up an excellent point. For a single club and single member, a member who is part of a single club, that kind of management, it works excellently for those of us who are members of multiple clubs. I think it's a function of the club, not so much a function of the member. And I think that's where the challenge comes. So Easy Speak is a function of the club and its management as opposed to a member and his or her management. So for those of us who are members of multiple clubs, my VP of Education at Twinspirations, David Yim, may not know that what I'm doing in 2 other or 3 other clubs. So but for a single club, for those of us who are in one clubs or for a club to manage its own member progress and its own meeting management, Easy Speak is excellent. Some of us have been in the space for a little bit, and Craig, if someone's making notes here. So if you've offered about Easy Speak, someday you'll hear from us. I would also say, if you would, there's one of the ahas that we had. Alicia, may I share that? One of the ahas we had was we think we are very active. We are doing an awesome job in sharing the value of Toastmasters, but we are doing it on Toastmasters social media pages. I'm pausing for a reason. Right? We need to spread the word outside. We need to take it to outside of Facebook pages for Toastmasters, right? So I would say, please, if you would take a minute today, after, on the weekend, whenever you find 1 minute, write a one-liner of the value that you found in Toastmasters and post it on your personal page, not necessarily on District 10 or District 40 or District 89's page or on Toastmasters International page. We are preaching to the choir there. They don't need our messaging. Who needs our messaging is a person who does not know about Toastmasters. So if that's just my personal request to you, and I know Sharon will appreciate that. Those of us who are working very hard to spread the word are spreading the word to those who already know about Toastmasters. We don't realize it always, and we think we are doing a great job and we are not getting a return on our investment. Our return of investment is we are investing in the wrong spot. So let's invest on our personal pages, personal LinkedIn posts, personal Instagram or Twitter feeds. So if we can do that this weekend, if we can be a little obsessed with that, I think that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
Love it. I think that's a great point. I mean, how often do we scroll through Facebook and we see something we like and we like it, or we throw a heart in there, or we have a quick line to share, or we share it. And that's something we can do too. I mean, let's get our stories sharing so more people can know, especially in times like right now. I am so happy to be a Toastmaster right now because I don't know what I would be doing. It has helped me streamline my focus, stay connected, and meet so many more people. I've been to more clubs since we are online, and it's just one click. So I remember driving 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour to visit clubs as club growth director, and I loved every bit of it. But to be able to visit other clubs and to attend district events, click. I just love it. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Yeah. Well, we're in our final 4 minutes, and how fitting as there's 4 of us up here. And we want you to know that we have been talking with one another for weeks in excitement of this day where we could share what we've been learning and what we've been experiencing, and wanting you to have great experiences as well. So final words, we'll start with Bill. Do you have some final thoughts?
For those of you who would like the opportunity, we've already talked about Pathways PAL. But if you are interested in assisting in the Pathways program in the district, please let Tricia know, let me know. There are a lot of different opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bill. Robbie?
I want everyone to know tonight that even as someone who participated in the training, I learned a lot. There's so much to continually learn about this. Alicia and I laughed because we were brainstorming and she said, "Oh, I'm going to call Bill." We have such a wonderful resource in District 10 in Bill Simpson. And that's kind of like become my thing now. When I get stuck with something, even if it's not with Toastmasters or Pathways, I say, "Oh, I'm going to call Bill." So if you have questions, yeah, Bill is just a phenomenal resource. It's been a pleasure working with him, and this has been a learning experience all the way through, and I appreciate the opportunity so much.
Thank you, Robbie. Tricia?
I echo what everyone else said. And Bill is one person. We would like to build a team of people. You don't have to be an expert in Pathways. I'm not an expert. I haven't finished path level yet. I mean, a full path yet. Yet I'm trying to help train in Pathways myself. But if you know a little bit about Pathways and you want to just give a hand, you can become one of the Pathways pals. And we hope that you take advantage of this program. If you have a great idea for a webinar, and you would like to present one or like to attend one, just let us know. We'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Look forward
Tricia.
to it.
Thank you. Our Club Growth Director, Craig Gerlach, do you have some words you'd like to share?
Thank you so much for everybody that's here and attending. Thank you so much for the excellent and informative training from everybody that's conducted and asked questions throughout. Certainly the questions also make us better and more on point to what you need. So the conversation that this has been part of what I think and feel makes the effort of what this is so successful in training. So I want to thank everybody for having a role in that, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I'd like to take a moment to give kudos to our behind-the-scenes magic makers, and those are our Zoom masters, Sandra Orland and Dan Minder. Woo! We really appreciate all that you do, and there's so much that we don't even have time to explain it all, but we appreciate the research that you do to answer questions and just to make sure you keep us on top of things with what's new in Zoom, what's new in tech, what can we do, how should we transition. We appreciate you very much. I have a couple final words, and then I'll pass off to our district director. Get started. Get your club members started in Pathways. Be a Pathways pal. Yes, keep coming to training. Seek out answers. Search on the Toastmasters website. Go into Pathways. Get the videos. They're short, they're succinct, and they're helpful. Very well done. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Partner up and make sure that you are spreading the word on your social media pages. Let people know this is definitely fun to us. We're here on a Friday night. This is fun. We're enjoying ourselves. We want to do well. So let's let other people know. And we are here for you, and we thank you so much for being here with us. Servanti?
Absolutely, absolutely. And one more round of applause to our awesome presenters, to our behind-the-scenes hosts, Zoom masters, as we call them, Sandra and Dan, and thank you to all of you. And I can't say that enough. I know it sounds redundant. I know I sound redundant sometimes, but my cup overfloweth